at Scale 2020. We hope that most of you were able to join yesterday, where we had an amazing first day to understand what it takes to build more global companies out of African businesses. And we are going to continue that conversation today. I'm here to welcome you to day 2 on behalf of Africa Foresight Group, our headline partners, DEG and CDC Group, as well as our other partners, Harambeans and AFCA, and I'm very, very excited to be here with you today. Welcome from wherever you are. I would like to briefly recap what happened yesterday, also for those that might not have had the time to join for the first day of the conference. Yesterday, we had a really exciting program that we're now going to show on screen that lasted from 12 to 5 p.m. UK time. It was opened by Aliko Dangote himself, who shared his wisdom about what he thinks needs to change for us to have more businesses that can reach the scale of Dangote Group. I was particularly inspired about the latest numbers he was sharing, because now it seems Dangote Group is getting beyond the $25 billion revenue mark with the expansion they are currently pursuing, which will put them even more onto the map as a global player. We also had Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, who gave us a very, very important talk about how, as business leaders, we have an onus to care about good governance, and how we have to unite more as business leaders to advocate for the change we want to see in order to do business well and effectively in Africa. We launched the Hidden Champions of Africa initiative yesterday. This is very close to my heart because it's a partnership that we've launched between DEG and AFG to build more visibility as a platform for African companies. And we also had a chance to meet some companies we consider hidden champions, including the businesses of Sama Okonkwo, Dr. Majup, and Tembo Matungu. Afterwards, we had the chance to dive a bit more into technology and discuss how we can apply technology to the traditional African business sectors. And we concluded with an extremely inspiring talk by Paul Kasimu, who talked real conversation about human capital and what we really have to do as leaders to manage human capital well. So I hope those of you who joined were able to enjoy yourselves properly and got some interesting takeaways, but today will be no less interesting. So let's have a quick look what's happening today. We are about to go live with our keynote speaker for the day, which is going to be Herbert Wigwe, the CEO and Group Managing Director of Access Bank, and I'm really excited that he's joining us. He'll be having a conversation after his speech with Melvin Lubega, a rising entrepreneur from South Africa who has a lot of questions for him. We want you to network today. It's Friday. I'm sure you had a busy week, but it's important that you have a chance to meet each other, even though this is a virtual and not an in-person conference. So please make sure you join the virtual network lunch that is happening right after Herbert's session. After that, we would also like to give you a chance to meet us, because I know that a lot of people are getting to know Africa Foresight Group for the first time. So if you're interested in learning more about who we are, you are welcome to join our World of AFG session. And then we'll conclude the program with 2 really exciting sessions. One will be about why should we scale as an African business, with 3 really exciting CEOs from across the continent. And last but not least, we will conclude with a really important conversation about gender lens financing. Because we all know that global success will only be made possible if women are put on the map and supported in their business endeavors. Thank you, and let's get started with the program. Melvin Lubega is here with me now, I hope, who is going to chair the session with Herbert Wigwe. Melvin, can you hear and see me?
I can both hear and see you, Yasmin. How are you?
I'm doing well. I hope you can turn your sound up a little bit, but I can hear you well. And happy birthday. I think that we managed to get you a great birthday gift by being able to meet Herbert. So I'm going to call in Herbert now, Melvin. We're really excited to have you. You have achieved a lot as an entrepreneur and rising star in the African business world. And I think you'll have some great questions to ask Herbert after his keynote speech. So let's get Herbert in. Herbert Wigwe, are you with us? Can you hear and see us?
I can hear you properly. Yasmin, am I audible?
You are very audible and also viewable. Welcome, Herbert. So nice to see you here.
Pleasure, pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Yasmin.
Thank you. Are you still in London?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
I have
wow.
a series of board meetings and all of that. Yes, thank you.
Wow. Okay.
Thank you.
Herbert, I'll make it quick so that we can hear from you because you are the important person for this session. But Herbert, I'm very, very thankful that you have decided to join us. I know you're extremely busy. I've been a quiet fan following you for many years. And I think the expansion story that you've built with Access Bank is just incredible, especially when it comes to the pace of expansion that you guys have been able to put forward. Yesterday, we had the honor to welcome Aliko Dangote, who I know is also a good friend of yours, who was talking about how we need more entrepreneurs that build big businesses and scale quickly. And I think you are the perfect person to tell us more about that. Herbert, you came into Access Bank in 2002 and have co-led and then later fully led the expansion of Access Bank since then. So I think it will be time for us to hear from you how that has gone and what the learnings were from it. After that, Melvin, who's also on already, is going to ask you a few tough questions before we let you go back to all the meetings you have to take today.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much, Yasmin.
Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's a great pleasure being with you guys out here today at Africa at Scale 2020. I think the best way to start is for me to share with you our own history in Access, perhaps to be able to provide some learning points coming out of this. Now, the best thing I ever did in terms of learning about running a bank was to work in one that struggled for many years, because it taught me how not to run a bank. I've also had the privilege of working in an entrepreneurially driven environment that basically equipped me with the right value system and the foundation that was necessary to create yet another oasis of sanity, if you like, as far as banking is concerned in Africa. My partner and I, back in 2002, sat down one day, and this was actually in South Africa when we were reflecting on the bank that we had just invested in, and asked ourselves, what kind of bank did we want? We were both unanimous. We wanted to create a bank that was built on best practice and that was basically in the quest for excellence. Secondly, we wanted a true global player. And we were learning from things that happened 30 years, 20 years prior, the creation of Santander, the creation of HSBC and Banco Itaú in Brazil, etc. And we told ourselves we could do something just as good. We invested in Access Bank because we saw the opportunity of creating a bank that could basically get to the top across Africa and be recognized across the entire world. Our vision was very simple. We wanted to build the world's most respected African bank. We both believed in the talents of Nigerians and Africans and wanted to empower Africans to have the opportunity to be the very best that they could be. We wanted this not just for our staff, but for our customers by offering the right products that would enable Africans to start up and build solid businesses. For us, we believe it was possible, having worked all our lives in entrepreneurially driven institutions, one that has succeeded, one that had not succeeded, and so we had the learnings from both types of institutions. But please don't misunderstand me. There were several challenges we had along the way as we did it. There were times when we both held our breath. Maybe there was a mistake that had been made and a catastrophe averted, or in some cases, a battle that had been won. But I'll share with you and let you know something, that growth pains in every business is all too real, particularly out here in Africa, because we don't have any fallback positions. Yet, we never lost sight of our vision in everything that we did, which is basically to become the most respected African bank on the world stage. My partner and I worked together for 12 years, and then I took over in 2014. For us, the 4I principle was critical in everything that we did and was a decisive factor for the growth of our bank. So if one person had a different view, we sat down and reflected on it and made sure that we took the right decision at all points in time required for our institution. He's still my responsibility partner, by the way, today, even though he has retired. Today, Access Bank Group is a financial services conglomerate headquartered in Lagos with subsidiaries across the continent. We have a strong presence in the United Kingdom. We have presence in Dubai. We have presence in China. We have presence in India as well, and soon perhaps in Hong Kong. In 2002, Access Bank had already been around for 12 years and was the 69th largest lender in Nigeria at that time. But today, we're ever so proud to say that we are the largest lender in the country and perhaps the second largest bank in the continent in terms of the customer base. We have about 37 million or 38 million unique customers and about 45 million accounts. 36 million unique customers is the size of most countries in the continent in terms of population. And that means everybody banking with us. And it's a big number. And we think that as we grow to 2023, perhaps we'll end up with about 100 million or 120 million customers rather across the entire continent. We have followed a rapid expansion journey over the past 10 years. And we think that perhaps the next 10 years will be even much more interesting. So this conference is aptly headlined Africa at Scale, Rebuilding African Business. I can thoroughly understand the concept of rebuilding being top of mind for our business leaders throughout the world, given the current pandemic, COVID-19. The forecasts tell us that world GDP will basically reduce or shrink by as much as 5.2% coming from the coronavirus. And this basically puts us at par with, for those who remember, with the recession that happened during the global crisis in 2009. But you see, I think that these are things that we must learn to live with, and they will continue to happen. Recessions happen, and so also will pandemics come. They are all cycles. But for us at Access, our response to short-term challenges is basically to rebuild. And we've seen it time and time again in the past 20 years almost in running the institution. I totally agree with Jeff Bezos, who said that be stubborn on the long-term vision, but flexible on the details. In times like these, it is critical to focus on your long-term vision while being resilient and nimble in adjusting to short-term shocks. If you sit at home and brood over COVID-19, you would wait for 1 year to go by, 2 years to go by, you won't have a business to run. We have to integrate it in the way in which we run our lives and think of how to make the best of it. Over the past 18 months, we acquired Diamond Bank in Nigeria, and with it came about 18 million fresh customers on top of our existing customer base. Just last month, our Zambian subsidiary acquired Zambia's Carbon Bank, and we also expanded into Kenya with the completion of our acquisition of Kenya's Transnational Bank. I hold the firm conviction that what it takes to be resilient is also what it takes to expand. And this is the reason that we are able to complete acquisitions even in a time of crisis. We will not allow our future or destiny to be determined by any one thing, whether it's a pandemic or it's a slowdown in economic growth. We must find ways to go around it. We are always prepared for shocks and downturns because we know that these are cyclical and to be expected. You know, several years ago, cycles used to be for like 12 years, then it came down to 8 years. Now I think it's about 4 years or 5 years. If you don't know how to go around these cycles, whether it's economic cycles or it's a pandemic and all of that, and rebuild and just remain focused on your long-term vision, trust me, you won't have a business to run. But I think that our long-term goal at Access Bank has not changed from the one Ig and I agreed on since 2002, and we continue to move closer and closer to becoming the world's most respected African bank. So what is our expansion philosophy? I would describe it as a blend of two important parts. First is an inorganic path to growth, and secondly is basically ensuring that we have capital strength in everything we do. One of the problems or things that kills most businesses is absence of capital, and particularly so as far as banking is concerned. Let me address each of these. We have followed a combination of organic and inorganic growth over the past 19 years. And this has allowed us to accelerate our scaling significantly and built us as a Pan-African global group within a span of less than 20 years. However, acquisitions and expansions have their consequences. You might have hundreds of thousands of scared people when a merger happens, and the public will pay a lot of attention, which can further impact your organization. That is why leadership and culture building has been one of the most important, if not the most important task for me as a leader. It does not matter how close the two institutions are, all combinations come with problems, and as many books as you read that speak to issues around mergers and acquisitions, they always come with very unique culture problems, and you have to learn how to go through it. It does not matter how you try to, the amount of comfort you try to give to both parties is just a natural human thing, and you have to learn how to beat it. Otherwise, it can take you down. Culture, as soft as issue as it is perhaps the most difficult issue to deal with in all of these things. So building a strong culture takes commitment and intention by all of management. And I'll share with you how this happens. Even if you provide a lot of attention to the institution that is being acquired, all right, even the people in the existing institution will feel and think that they are being shortchanged. When you pay attention to them, the other guys would think that they are being shortchanged. So it's a never-win situation. You have to come up with the right metrics to get people to understand the clear vision of the institution, and that what will always remain is those who are committed to growing the institution. So there are several aspects to this that I will touch, but I will touch on a few. At Access Bank, we are ruthlessly committed to our vision and to our core values. And those values are around leadership, are around excellence, are around empowered employees, about passion for customers, professionalism, and of course, innovation, which is today extremely key in everything that we do, particularly given the pace at which things are changing in the new digital environment that we operate in. These values permeate all aspects of our business, but I'll speak to sustainability, which has been an essential ingredient of all the things that we do since 2008. It is not something we visit once in a while like most institutions do. It is embedded in our policies, it is embedded in our practices, and it affects and dictates how we operate daily. We are constantly making sure that our businesses, or the business that we do, is not jeopardizing opportunities and the resources for future generations of Africans, and not just Nigerians. We don't operate as a Nigerian enterprise, we operate as an African enterprise. And whatever best policies and practices we find, and whatever sustainability ethos or things that we create, they are replicated across the entire continent. We put the communities in which we operate at the center of whatever we do. And we've proven this over and over again by having our staff involved in community projects. So not only are we helping build thriving African communities, but these projects bring together a second community of motivated Access bankers. So it's not just about Access Bank in itself doing all of these things. We make sure it is an integral part of all our people to understand that they must contribute to the society in which they're doing business. And we feel extremely, extremely proud of all of these projects that our people have done. I'm often asked why I'm optimistic about the future. How could I not be when I see every day the passionate and dedicated people of Access, all right, that I work with, doing all the great things they're doing. The smiles on their faces each time we get into an environment and a new mosquito tent, for instance, is put up, or another child is given an opportunity, or the dreams of an entrepreneurial woman are brought to bear, or another branch is being created in some new community that providing new access to financial services. I mean, how would I not be optimistic? My point is that building a community of dedicated, enthusiastic Access bankers, for me, is one of the most important things that I do as a leader in Access Bank. I come from the southernmost part of Nigeria that is ridden with significant environmental issues. And I saw it growing up as a child, and I saw it deteriorate over time, and I know what conflict has therefore created between the local communities and some of the major oil companies that operate in that environment. And so it's etched in my mind and my thought process that if you don't support those communities in which you do business with, you will over time come to feel the pain that comes from the conflicts around them. The second part of my expansion philosophy comes from my belief that as Africans, we have to raise capital to support our institutions. The more you run out on the continent or anywhere to look for money, the more you realize that the only place that you should get support from and that can understand you is at home. Charity will always begin at home. Please don't overburden yourself and always think that somebody else from somewhere is destined to come and help you. It does not happen like that. As Africans, we need to come together to support ourselves to grow the businesses that we are doing. And perhaps that is one of the beautiful things we've seen, perhaps in some of our business people in Nigeria, because the Nigerian banks grew to the point where they were able to support them to create some of the largest institutions that now exist both in the continent and outside the continent. And we're ever so proud of them. And the idea is that we must replicate it in all the countries in which we do business, because only then do you now find Western bankers and institutions seeking to come and support them. They will never be there on the ground floor when it all starts. So liquidity and capital have always been key for us, knowing that they are fuel, in our own case, for our inorganic growth. But it is not important only to raise liquidity and capital to finance acquisitions. It is important to encourage people to be more and more independent. Ever so often, I hear of African leaders or African countries basically speaking to the fact that they're not getting enough support from the West. Honestly, I think that we must do everything to remain independent. One interesting example is South Africa, as far as I'm concerned. The fact that it had a closed economy for several years has made that economy in itself resilient. You may have different issues and think about things that are unique to you, but it makes your local economy resilient. And if you live and work and go to school in South Africa, you can actually have a good life, okay? Now, forget the other issues that the country is faced with. If everybody can replicate the same thing and we come together to support ourselves, we would be a wonderful, wonderful and great continent. So for example, in 2002, we were at the forefront of rallying the whole world to raise funds for the battle against HIV/AIDS. And the reason we're doing it was because there was growing donor fatigue at that time because AIDS was so stigmatized, and so fundraising was in itself a problem. It was for us also about empowering and facilitating the changing dynamics for Africa. I mean, how long will we go cap in hand begging institutions, great institutions, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, all the other guys who've done things across the world to come and support us? We must in ourselves also learn to be independent and try and raise money across the continent to support the things that we do. So this is what we will continue to do. We will continue to be forward-thinking partners to all citizens of our great continent so that the image of Africa changes on a global level. We are extremely proud to be an active part of our continent that is rewriting the story for the rest of the world. African authors, artists, fashion designers, filmmakers, and businesses are starting to make their presence known on the world stage. It is truly amazing, particularly each time we look at music, we look at fashion, we look at even in science, etc. And for me, I cannot be more proud of being an African and a Nigerian. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Wigwe.
Thank you,
and thank you for sharing those insights. And there's just so much richness in the stories you've shared. And so I will try to be succinct in what I ask, but hopefully we can go fairly deep. And as a starting point, what really resonates true is the importance you place on people and people driving the change within an organization. And something which I often tell my managers and my teams is that you can't expect your business to grow exponentially if you aren't growing yourself exponentially and actually believing in the vision. And so I guess in this particular conversation, there are many peers here, and I thought it'd be valuable to get your insights from a people development and leadership perspective. Like, what is it that you think you as leader and also Access Bank does particularly well in terms of grooming and inspiring its people?
Well, let me put it this way. People constitute everything. You know, technology can try, but it's all about human capital. You have to find and train your people. You have to give them the right environment to be able to express themselves. You have to basically build on their skills, all right? And all of that is around also creating the appropriate culture and the appropriate environment for them to be the very best that they can be. So for instance, if you come into the Access family, irrespective of where you come from, whether you're South African, you are from DRC, you are from Rwanda, you are an Access person first before you say, oh, I'm from any country. All right. So we have a proper training facility and we bring people, cohorts together who spend 6 to 9 months living together, going through the same curriculum, everything from culture to the technical attributes. All right. Before they basically come into the environment. Obviously, our rate of growth has basically outstripped the amount of people you can train organically. So we have a structure that continues training people as well, even those that we basically pick from outside to basically come in. Our view is that the more people you can train and build as leaders, who therefore are custodians of access culture over time, the better it is for the institution. However, there is also something about genetic transformation, which involves bringing people from outside so that you can have a different viewpoint. All right. So we will continue to seek those people, but when we bring them in, we have to expose them to our own culture. All right. So that as they come in, we can absorb and learn from them, and they can join in the building of the institution whilst maintaining the integrity of the values that we stand for.
No, thank you for sharing that. And I think the human capital side is such an important element that I think we often discount. Something which you also mentioned around, I guess, your expansion philosophy, particularly around, inorganic growth and also the effective use of capital. You mentioned an interesting point that, it's best for us as a continent to look for capital within, because that will allow us to get access to the best finance to achieve that and liquidity. But for businesses, let's say, looking now using a base and trying to access capital, I imagine during this time it was fairly difficult. And so I wanted to ask you 2 questions. One, any advice for businesses, particularly at scale, looking to scale during these times in terms of having need for capital, but also 2, if you could reflect on when you acquired Access Bank with your partner, whether you had a clear sense of your capital requirements over the life cycle of the business. Because often if you told someone up front, I need $1 billion versus I need 10 million, they'll approach you very differently. And just strategy on how you thought through that particular perspective.
Maybe let me tell you what we did. It was clear to us that the Nigerian banking industry was going to change in 5 years. It was clear to us that world over the top 5 banks will typically dominate a system or have a more than proportionate share of the system. Even though you can have players, you can have boutique institutions, you can have niche players, etc. We sat down and came up with a 10-year transformation plan. We left Nigeria because we didn't want to be disturbed. We didn't go with our phones. And we, in fact, at that time, we traveled to South Africa, 2 of us and a 3rd person to support us. We worked for 1 full week, doing nothing else from morning till midnight or till 1 a.m., planning our future and pulling out things. We could tell what capital requirement will require in 5 years and what will require in 10 years. Obviously, there were like little changes. Some of the things came a bit faster. And I'll give you a simple example. At the time we bought Access Bank, the capital was $10 million, just $10 million. That was all that we had. And that was not all our own. We had to invest to get some of it. Now, we knew that we were not going to be able to stand institutions that were already there for 100 years. All right, the likes of First Bank and Union Bank that have been there for generations. So we worked at that time, we got HSBC to do some work with us, and we basically planned our 5-year growth plan. And so little wonder when 2 years after, we had a new central bank governor that came in and said the minimum capital required for a bank was no longer $10 million, but was $225 million. So let me tell you what happened. There was no bank our size that survived it. They just couldn't make it. They couldn't raise the capital. But because we were prepared, okay, we were the only bank our size that went through that scale. I'm just trying to tell you how these changes happen, right? Whether it's in cycles, et cetera, et cetera. So also during the crisis that happened in 2009 or 2008, the world that came from the share crisis, all right? Same thing happened. A lot of banks, after the stress test coming from it, couldn't make it. And a lot of them died. But recall that we had gone to the market and we had raised $1 billion in capital, all right? So it's been crystal clear, particularly when you run a bank, that what capital means to you and for any company. And if you ask me, what will we see in the next 10 years? We also know that those things would happen. And we are perpetually creating strong buffers for our institution because At a time like this, when you have this pandemic or an economic crisis, the stronger ones get stronger if they know the right things to do. If you get the point I'm trying to make, as we scale. So those are the things that are driving us. So it's been extremely important, and that is how we've been able to achieve scale both locally and, of course, because we have succeeded working with the right partners. All right, and I'm talking of the likes, the DFIs who basically saw value in us. All right, it created a platform. All right, for other international investors to come in subsequently.
Yes. And just to build on that, I know time is against us, but something which I know you've mentioned for some time, and I remember watching an interview that you did on CNBC Africa early in the year, and you spoke about the opportunity for import substitution on the continent. And I think you spoke to it now, particularly in relation
the most important
to
thing
that.
is absolutely the most important thing. And the more we do it for the right reasons, the better it is. We must have much more solid economies with huge reserves. All right, those are the things that we have that can protect our currencies. So it's been done in South Africa, could be better. It's been done in Nigeria, could be better. And I think that is one of the things the Nigerian government is doing. We're moving back to think Nigeria first, eat made in Nigeria, live made in Nigeria, etc. And we need to replicate it across the continent. Thank you, Melvin.
No, thank you very much. I think just to bring it together, and I think it's let's call it a preamble to a longer conversation, but definitely very many insights here. I think the best thing for all of us in this particular session is to think through how can we take the lessons from, I think, Mr. Wigwe, your experience and that of Access Bank, and apply it to our own scenarios, but also ensure that we think about a collaborative mindset and learn from one another. So very grateful for the conversation and look forward to continuing it, hopefully over the networking lunch. I think Yasin will cue us to shortly, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Great pleasure. Thank you very much, Melvin. Thank you.
Wigwe, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. I know you are busy now because you have a big afternoon. But thank you so much for the time and the insightful learnings. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Yasmin. Thank you. Great pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Melvin, are you still here?
Present.
Melvin, this was so interesting. It's interesting because we actually didn't know that Herbert and his partner went to South Africa in order to figure out their strategy for building the bank. So that's a very nice coincidence given that you are calling in from South Africa.
That's true.
What was your biggest learning from the conversation?
I think taking a step back, what a thread came through in the conversation is the importance of excellence. I think whether it wasn't people, whether it wasn't decision-making quality, whether it wasn't aspiration, I think it's about the continually striving for excellence. And I think it's about the vision of excellence and the path you get there is one which deviates. And so I appreciate that as a key takeaway.
Thank you so much for sharing the conversation and asking really, really insightful and on-point questions. I hope you spend a great rest of your birthday in South Africa, and see you soon, Melvin. Thank you.
And happy birthday to you, Yasmin. Thank you.
Please don't talk about that. All right, this was our keynote for today, ladies and gentlemen. Herbert Wigwe, an amazing entrepreneur and leader. I think it was particularly interesting how he put his finger into the capital and fundraising question, because it seems from his story, we might do well in trying to be a lot more bold in the way we think about the amount of capital we raise and how we use that as an instrument to build truly scaled businesses and be an independent continent. I think that it's now time for our virtual lunch, something that I've been looking forward to, because I think it's really important that we not only watch the YouTube channel all day, but also really get to know each other. I know that most of you by now have downloaded our conference app. If you have not, please do so you can join the virtual lunch. The conference app is available both on the Apple and Play Store. You just have to look for Africa at Scale, and then you will find the app. It has the Africa at Scale logo prominently on it. Download it and log in with the email address that you used to register, very important, so that you can log in, create your profile, and join the other attendees. Now, quick explanation, how is the networking lunch going to work? A few quick slides for that so that you get the full picture. We are going to offer you to join 5 different tables, and each table has a somewhat enticing, interesting discussion question. So the 5 tables are easy to find once you're in the app. And once you are on the home screen of the app, you just swipe left once to get to the second page of the home screen. And then you will see an icon that says Virtual Networking Lunch. Once you click on it, you see the 5 questions. It's mean questions. Things like, does private equity work as an investment model in Africa? So just pick the question that you think is the most important or interesting to you. And once you tap on it, it will automatically invite you to join a Zoom room where you can meet everybody else from the conference who also picked that question. Just have a loose conversation. There will be a moderator to welcome you, but it's up to you what you want to do with the time. We hope it gives you a nice opportunity to meet additional attendees from the conference, make new good connections, maybe meet some old faces that you haven't seen in a while thanks to Corona. And we see you back here at 1:30 p.m. UK time, where we are going to tell you a little bit more about the world of AFG. Stay tuned and enjoy.